From a plethora of top secret, highly secure locations throughout South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider Podcast. I am Mike Finger with sports editor Nick Talbot, Tom Ringo Star Orsborn, and the polarizing Jeff McDonald. We are recording this on a Tuesday, having not covered a single Spurs game since the last Spurs Insider Podcast, as the local Cagers have been quarantining. They've returned to San Antonio. Many of them have, not all of them have. And they have a game on the schedule for Wednesday against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And Jeff McDonald, you were putting together a starting lineup for the newspaper. How in the world are you doing that? And how will Greg Popovich put one together for the actual game tomorrow?
Well, what I did is I have this hat. And I put 10 names in it, and then I drew 5. So I think that's probably what Pop's going to do too. Probably a different hat, but the same procedure, I would think. Because I don't know. I mean, you're really with the guys they have. Let's name the guys that are out, just so our listener can follow along. But obviously, no DeMar DeRozan due to a death in the family. And then the health and safety protocol guys are Derek White, Keldon Johnson. I'm losing them now.
Rudy
Gay, and Devin
Vassell, and Quindary Weatherspoon. So a lot of wings, a lot of 2s and 3s on that list. So I don't know how to put together that starting lineup. I mean, DeJounte Murray's still there. I guess Patty Mills starts next to him, and Lonnie Walker at the 3, and then maybe Marcus is back and he's your 4, and Jakob's your 5. But that's just sort of a wild stab. I have a guess, just a wild guess based on nothing, that you might see like a Bates Diop start at the 3 just to keep Patty on the bench.
That was another thought that I had. Yeah.
And this is just. I mean, we're starting off with lineup talk because that's the obvious question of the moment. But and I guess last week we did talk about just the fact that COVID finally did catch up with the Spurs, and they had to hit this week off. So there's a lot of areas to get to, but just at the moment, it's to focus on basketball. They're going to be challenged for not just this game, but probably for a few games. I would assume that DeMar DeRozan would come back of that group the soonest because he's not in the protocols. It is, the death of his father. I can't imagine what he's dealing with at this time, but you would assume he would be one of the quickest back. But this is going to be kind of a mix and match for a while, it seems like.
And one thing I've heard from people is, good thing they're playing the Thunder, not a good team, right. 12-18. But I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Would you almost want to be playing someone that you're kind of giving up a win there? Like, wouldn't you rather be playing the Lakers where you're going to lose, odds are probably going to lose anyway, rather than like I don't know how I don't think the Spurs will win this game tomorrow for a number of reasons, mostly just not having enough good players. So you're giving up a game that was eminently winnable, and now not so winnable. And you can't complain about it, as Pop said yesterday. I'm not going to complain about it, but it does kind of suck for them. They were on a roll, had a good chance to put together a really good rodeo road trip. Still going to end at worst 2-1 on this trip, but it's just it wasn't good. There's never a good timing for this, but this was bad timing. And coming back and playing a team you can beat without if you were full strength, a team that you could beat, and you're not at full strength, so you're going to be challenged to beat them, is also bad timing.
I don't know. I kind of I agree with you, but then I see the possibility of guys stepping up. Lonnie played so well without DeMar for 2 games earlier in the season. You just never know. Pop seems to work wonders with these hodgepodge lineups at certain points. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they rise to the occasion and get it done. And after all, they do have Jakob Poeltl, right, Jeff?
That's one thing I can say. If there's a Jakob, there's a way.
Right.
I do think it's a possibility. Like to Tom's point, like that they could be competitive in this game. They could win this game. You can look forward to the next ones against the Pelicans on Saturday. Even if they don't have everybody back, then they can hang with that team. But to what Jeff was saying earlier, I think if you have to be shorthanded like this for a few games at a time, if you could pick the spot on the schedule, it would be like a back-to-back against the Lakers and the Bucks or something, where you're probably going to lose anyway. Because when you're getting down to competing for playoff spots, you need all the sure wins you can get, and this could have been a sure win in other circumstances, and now they're going to have to fight for it. Something interesting that I noticed during the past week when the Spurs haven't been playing at all, and this kind of speaks to where their schedule is, they haven't played. They end up losing 4 games as a result of this. And you look at the schedule and the breakdown, they still right now have played more games against the Western Conference than any other team in the league. In other words, all their schedule in the second half that's going to have to be made up after this delay. It's all Eastern Conference teams. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but you're just going to be seeing a lot of East over the next few months, and maybe the Spurs can make some hay. It's
going to be interesting. They have to squeeze them in though too, so it's sort of like something's got to give. So they have to squeeze them in, and so they're going to have to play some more back-to-backs, which the Spurs have not won the second night of a back-to-back yet this season. So that's kind of in the negative column. But then, 4 of the 5 games that they have to make up are against the East, which they have not lost to an Eastern Conference team this year. So that's in the positive column. So something's going to give. They're going to have to. Are they going to be a team that they're going to have to beat? Win. They're going to have to win on the second night of some back-to-backs in order to make up these games, I think. But they'll be against Eastern Conference teams.
Jeff, with the protocols, when do we expect the players back? If we were guessing, what game would that be? Would it be for the Nets or the Knicks next week? Is it still another week after this? Because they've been down for 8 days almost at this when they finally play.
The technical letter of the law is players have to quarantine for 10 days and then have to have 2 additional days of testing, and then if all goes well, possibly they're ready to go. So technically, they could, mathematically speaking, they could have guys cleared by Saturday against New Orleans. I don't know if that'll happen, and I don't know if even if they're cleared through protocols that they will be in a position to play in games. But mathematically speaking, there could be guys trickling back starting on Saturday. If I had to guess, I would say it would be more into next week before they start getting guys back on the floor and taking minutes in NBA games. But it's close.
It's tricky for Pop with both, Rudy being one of these guys at 34 years old, and then DeMar, when he comes back, it's a delicate situation with getting, avoiding soft tissue injuries with those 2 guys. Not to say that the younger guys can't get those injuries, but you certainly have to be more careful with DeMar and Rudy, I would think.
And it should be noted that in the original postponement of the Detroit game, the NBA announced 4 positive tests, and now 5 are out with health and safety protocols. So, to asking Pop about that yesterday, there's multiple timelines we're talking about.
Right.
It's not just that all 5 guys come back for the Pelicans game or for next week or whatever it is. It could be one game, 3 the next, 1 the following one. And then we haven't even gotten into how differently the virus or the, COVID-19 might have affected each player. Some of them, if they're like every other sample of Americans, of residents of the world that have had this, some of them probably have been symptomatic. Some of them have been asymptomatic. The illness might have hit 1 or 2 of them harder than the others. We've talked on the podcast before about players around the league that have had difficulty coming back from fatigue. For some, it's no big deal and might be ready to jump back out there, Saturday. but you just don't know how it will affect each individual player until that plays out over the next probably week or two.
Right. Drew came back just fine. There didn't seem to be any after effects with him, but may not be the case with the other guys.
And the other thing with him, though, is he plays if he plays at all, he plays 10 minutes.
Right.
He's not a guy that you're planning on playing 30 minutes, 25 minutes. Those are the guys I'll be interested to see how much they can keep their wind up. I talked to some of the coaches that have coached teams that have gone through these lengthy COVID layoffs this year. Particularly, I talked to Scott Brooks in Washington and Taylor Jenkins in Memphis this past week. And Scott Brooks especially was saying his guys, they went through their thing in mid-January. We're a month past that. And he's saying all his guys that were in the protocols, he doesn't think any of them are really 100% right now. They're all still working their way back. They're playing, they're on the floor, but he doesn't think they have the same tank of energy that they've had in the past. So it will be a thing to watch, to monitor coming back, especially the guys that, DeMar doesn't have it. Never mind. What am I talking about? But some of those guys play hard minutes. Derek White plays hard minutes. What is he going to look like when he comes back?
Keldon plays extra hard minutes.
Yeah. Another thing that I think is funny, funny is not right, but it's interesting, is the Spurs have not technically confirmed that all these guys tested positive for COVID, right? Because privacy issues, they can't say that. But then on the other, they're told by the league, you can't confirm positive COVID tests. But also the league requires them to put out an injury report before every game they play, stating who's going to be out and why. So you have to put health and safety protocols on that. It's just funny both of those rules. You put them together and everyone can see those guys tested positive for COVID. I was off the topic, but it's kind of funny to me how we can't say it, but the league makes us reveal this much and everyone else can do the math.
And once a week, the league will put out a statistical number on X number of players have tested positive this week.
Right.
And and last week it was 4 because those are the 4 Spurs guys. And this week there'll be at least 1 probably with the 5th Spurs guy.
Well, the 5th Spurs guy was Quindary, who had it before. He had it first.
Yes.
But wasn't Quindary at that game?
No,
see, I'm not sure about that.
He was put on the health and protocols after the Atlanta game. Remember
Saturday the 13th.
Yeah, Tom and I were talking about it because he just had a bad 24 hours. He fouled out of the Atlanta game in 8 minutes, and then the next day was in health and safety protocols. So he was the first one.
I thought that he was actually at that. I know that it was before the Charlotte game, but I thought he was at the Charlotte. I could be wrong.
He should not have been at the Charlotte game because he was in health and safety protocols for that game.
Okay. And I misunderstood that.
Anywho.
All right then.
Anywho. Yeah. So the fact the Spurs have not told us these players have tested positive. But what we know is because the league told us four unidentified Spurs tested positive. And there are 4 new Spurs on the injury report under health and safety protocols, and here are their names. So all of us can do the math.
Okay, but this is we're
out of the weeds. We're in the weeds now. Move on.
This is overly pedantic, but I still suspect it depends on how the league was wording this.
Yes.
But I still suspect that there was a 5th one after the announcement.
Right.
Because I'm assuming when they announced that the Pistons game was postponed, that one of the 4 was Quindary. Does that make any sense?
Not to me, but I can't say that you're wrong. There's
no,
really
Mike,
no way
I thought the same thing because they said we knew Quindary had it or was out in the protocols, and then they said 4.
Right.
So yeah, it's very possible that one of those guys got it later in the week.
Right. I think that's possible.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This is not why people come to the podcast. We haven't been very polarizing yet. Jeff hasn't been.
Give him time.
You want me to root for COVID? How am I going to be polarizing on this?
I don't know. It just seems like we might be losing our brand a little bit with everybody agreeing on everything.
I agree.
The league has gone on with the Spurs sidelined, and I guess there have been some other delays. The Mavericks and Rockets haven't played a whole lot over the past week because of what's been going on in the state. But one thing, looking at the standings in your Western Conference, there has been a little bit of separation with the teams that probably aren't going to make the playoffs and the top 9, 10, 11. And even though the Spurs haven't played the last week, I'm starting to think like it's all about positioning now. I'm starting to think that the playoffs are not just a possibility, but at least into those top 10 spots, a likelihood. And the road got a little more challenging because of the number of games they're going to have to play in the second half. But it seems like there's an opportunity there once everything starts getting back to normal, back in the flow, for the Spurs not only to earn a playoff bid, but to kind of work for some position there. Just wondering what you guys think.
They are right now. They are 6 games in the loss column ahead of 11th place. So if you're talking about just make the top 10, they're in pretty good shape there. And now, I mean, we can talk about, in this day and age, you want to make the top 6. That's the only way you really guarantee yourself a playoff berth without having to fight through a play-in. And right now they're sitting in 6th, and they're 3 games up on in the loss column. They're 3 games up on Denver for that. So, they're in a good position if they can ever get back on the floor, get bodies back. They were playing probably their best basketball of the year when all this happened. That's kind of the shame of it. But if they can get back in that rhythm, I think they have a good chance of. Positioning themselves to have a decent seed at least.
And 6th is important this year. Because you skip those first 2 games. Yeah. So I don't know the way we started this was making fun of Jeff trying to pick a lineup, Pop trying to pick a lineup. We can get into some of the weeds there. The guys who have not been in the rotation all year, who will probably play some significant minutes against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Those guys include not just Trey Lyles, but Luka Šamanić, the star of the Gubble, Trey Jones, Mr. Bates Diop. Am I saying that right? Bates Diop.
That's how Bill Land says it, so we'll go with him.
Yeah.
Oh, mama.
It's weird that to be covering a Spurs team where you have not met some of the players yet.
Yeah, I thought of that before too. I mean, this is getting off topic a little bit, but we've talked to Keldon Johnson a lot, but it's all been since the bubble last year. Like, we've barely talked to that guy in person. That's kind of weird. Anyway, I think that of the guys you mentioned, like the guys that haven't played that are probably going to play a lot, at least in this next game, I think Trey Jones is probably top on the list because the Spurs have all their bigs. The big rotation can kind of sort of remain something normal. All the guys that are out were wings, and I don't know what you call Rudy Gay anymore, but it's the guard rotation that's going to need the help. And so I think Trey Jones is in line for a lot of minutes, especially if you do decide to start Patty Mills. Trey Jones is your backup point guard. He's running the second unit. So that's a guy that I think we'll probably see minutes from. Now, as I say that, he'll probably play nothing tomorrow and I'll look like an idiot, but it wouldn't be the first time. So
he was playing really well in the G League. I mean, he started out with a tremendous double-double, and Matt Nielsen, the coach of the Austin Spurs, said that after that game, it was obvious that opponents were game planning for him and really focusing on him, but he continued to put up really good numbers. And, the thing that stood out was he was playing really well down the stretch in all those games, and they had some tight games. He played really well down the stretch. So Matt, had a lot of good things to say about how he played and how he was getting more acclimated with the Spurs system, although it was just 7 games. But, very optimistic report on him.
He could be – well, Jeff said he'd be their backup point guard if they start Patty.
Yeah.
If they start Patty Mills, he's their backup guard. Period.
Yeah.
There are no other guards coming off the bench. Another advantage he can have on the rest of the roster is he's probably in the best shape right now.
Yeah.
Because those guys, while they were quarantining in Charlotte, were not doing anything. They were not on the court at all. So that they had a practice on Monday evening in which the Spurs, which that was their first one in a week. And Pop said they did a lot of scrimmage just so they could play. And they'll probably do that Tuesday.
To practice Tuesday, yeah. They'll have a shoot around Wednesday, which will not be high on conditioning.
Right.
At least they got some practices in. That was kind of a concern for a while. At one point, we were hearing, I don't think they're going to be able to practice until shoot around in Oklahoma City, which I thought would be just a disaster. But apparently that's not been the case, and they've been able to get a couple practices in. So that will help. Like two practices in a week is probably more than they've ever gotten in the guts of a season before. So,
but they had, which is why they scrimmage. They had to replicate the games that they missed.
Yeah.
So, should be interesting.
What I would like to know is they had 10 guys available. So what were the teams in those scrimmages?
Oh,
that's what I would like to know. That would have been fun to know. And did Becky have to play just to give some guys a rest?
I bet it was like those legendary Team USA scrimmages in Barcelona, where it's like Magic against Jordan. And
except this was Luka Šamanić against Keita Bates-Diop.
Yes, exactly. Like just the same level of competition, and we're going to be telling stories about this scrimmage for decades to come.
So if only somebody had videotaped it, it will show up. It will show up in the Keita Bates-Diop documentary like 20 years from now.
You know who probably taped it is Willis.
Willis. Probably made Willis tape it. Shout out to Willis. I think of all the things I miss about being in the locker room and traveling, I think it's Willis.
For our listener who has no idea what we're talking about, it's just like the video coordinators, the guys in the locker room, see them anymore, and it's just a shame. Luis, our producer, has just informed us that we have a new review.
Oh no!
And this is a good segue where we really sincerely do. We can be sarcastic, and I know Jeff is condescending and polarizing, but we really do appreciate the reviews that y'all give us in the the Apple Store and all the places where you get your podcasts. We like you going to expressnews.com, subscribing to the Spurs Nation newsletter. We really, really like that. We also love these reviews. And the one Luis just sent me, 5 stars, the Jakob Poeltl of Spurs podcasts.
Now that is high praise.
Like Poeltl around the rim, this podcast should dominate your ears. And that is from Keith Ellis. We appreciate you, Keith. I think he's listener number 9, maybe 19. I don't know. We're blowing up.
High praise, my friend.
Yeah. So that's an honor.
All right. Now when we get off the air, y'all can tell me which one of you actually posted that.
It's this guy, Keith. I think he exists.
I don't
know. The All-Star reserves are named tonight. Why is that the Spurs representative Jakob Poeltl, Jeff?
Why was he not voted in as the starter? That's what I don't know what the fans are doing. I mean, I know I put him on my ballot at all 5 positions.
Yeah.
Why is he not in the slam dunk contest? Put him in the 3-point contest. Anything but the free throw contest. Just he's not good on those. But anything else is Jakob Poeltl.
Do you want to talk seriously and critically about why Poeltl has the best on-off number in the league, which he does?
Yes. Well, in
other words, the Spurs are better with the Spurs. No player in the NBA. This is absolutely serious. No player in the NBA how would you put this? There's a bigger difference between how well the team plays with him on the floor statistically and off the floor. They get a bigger boost from Jakob Poeltl than any other team gets from any other player.
I have thoughts.
Go.
There are two thoughts. One is that he's the best player on the team, as I've been telling you people.
48 minutes.
But he's not the best player on the team. But the things that he does, they have no one else that can or will do. They just don't have another rim protector. They don't have another big that's going to clean the glass like that. They don't have another guy that sets the screens like he does. So you lose a guard for a while. You sub out a guard. You can put in another guard and get similar production. Yet they don't have another Jakob Poeltl on the roster. The other thing I would also point out is if you look at that list of the top 10,
they're all Spurs bench.
They're all Spurs bench players. And Poeltl's a starter now, been a starter since LaMarcus has been out, but has spent most of the time this year off the bench. That leads me to believe that that's the bench making up a lot of deficits that the starters have created.
That's exactly right.
So I think it's both. One, that Jakob Poeltl is one of the best players in the NBA, if not the best player in the NBA. And also, the Spurs starting unit has dug some holes that the bench has had to dig them out. It's two things.
That's what it is.
He's the best Austrian in the NBA. No?
This is true. Maybe in NBA history, I believe.
So, and that'll be another kind of sidebar, a side story to what's going to happen the next couple of games because of these lineups that they're going to have. I don't know if you can make any grand judgments off of what happens at Oklahoma City or even against New Orleans on Saturday. You're going to have, if LaMarcus comes back into the lineup, he could be playing along. He's always going to be playing along some kind of big guy, whether it's Poeltl or Eubanks or Lyles or whoever, just because they don't have anybody else. But we'll see how much of the good mojo that Jakob and that group had been developing before this hiatus will be able to carry through.
Here's a thought. Assuming LaMarcus comes back to play against the Thunder, this is a good game for him to come back for. I mean, not just because they need the extra bodies, but I think sort of the not worry or concern, but there was a thought that, the Spurs are rolling. They've got things how they want it to be. And then LaMarcus is going to come back and you're going to have to reinvent yourself around LaMarcus Aldridge, or he's going to have to fit. It's just maybe going to throw some things off. There's no throwing off whatever mojo the Spurs had going. It's already been done, thrown off by COVID. He's going to come back into this mess of things. He can just work on himself, kind of, I think, and just work on his conditioning, maybe knock down some shots, get back in a flow, and not really worry about, I'm gonna screw up this rhythm that the Spurs are on, because that rhythm's gone. So I think this is actually a decent turn of events, specifically for LaMarcus Aldridge and his return from that. How long has he been out? Since February 1st, so 2 week long layoff. I think this could be helpful for him.
3 weeks.
Yeah, just to come back and not feel like
he's getting in the way.
Yeah, he's getting in the way. Yeah.
And I'm not sure he'd be doing this if they weren't in the situation. Like if they were in the middle, I doubt that he would have returned during this road trip if it had gone without COVID.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
he's definitely needed now, just because you got to play some guys some minutes,
Okay.
Hey, our esteemed producer has given us the wrap it up sign, I think.
I got it.
Right.
But that was we like to finish positive. That was a positive.
Wait, no, I can't be the one that finishes positive. Again, it's branding.
For finishing, finding a good way to get LaMarcus Aldridge into the lineup, and without him feeling like he's messing with the mojo. That could be, if he plays well against the Thunder and then the other guys gradually start getting back, that could be a good thing. The Spurs just getting back on the floor, that could be a good thing. And in terms of, any complaints they might have about all the back-to-backs they play in the second half of the season and dealing with this COVID and having to overcome Greg. I'll let Greg Popovich finish this one. Special guest Greg Popovich. He mentioned last night that complaining or feeling sorry for oneself, that's not in the picture. It's inappropriate, not deserved, only thank yous for what we all have.
Mike, I was going to ask you, in all seriousness, if that quote is now at the top or near the top of the motivational quotes we've heard through the years.
It's not up to Bill Parcells.
Okay.
But, because that's legendary. And I don't have that one on me, but I think we've mentioned it on the podcast before. We can mention it later. But just we'll finish with Pop saying only thank yous for what we all have, and that leads into it. Everybody out there, take care of each other and keep it real.